Hello, welcome back to Move Ahead with Dalia. I'm your host, Dalia Cahigas, and on today's show, we are talking about mental health services. My guest is Crystal Cancel, the program director at CTS Health. Hi,
Hello.
Crystal.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
I'm
so much
excited.
for being here.
Yes.
Very, very exciting. We want to talk about CTS Health, which is a nonprofit organization. Could you share what the CTS Health offers?
So, CTS Health, first of all, stands for Chicago Therapeutic Services. And what we provide is community support, and we also do a holistic approach and integrated services, which means that we also partner with other communities, organizations to give complete services. So if we are tackling a mental health entity, then we'll partner up with someone that might have financial health, financial literacy,
Mm.
primary care, so that when our consumers come to us, we're able to provide other resources, not just mental health. So for us, we provide case management,
Okay.
casework, we provide outpatient therapy, and we provide PSR, which is psychosocial rehabilitation, and we provide CST, which is for our its community support um, team that helps individuals that might need a little bit more guidance and a little bit more assistance, just maneuvering through the community and on a day-to-day base, just staying stabilized in that baseline. So those are for our more like consumers. We call our clients consumers, so those are for our consumers that need just a little bit more care, and that's a program that we also just started.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it does sound like there is a broad range of
Yeah,
things that you're doing, that CTS Health is doing for the community.
for
So
sure.
we know that the term mental health um, and mental well being has been a huge topic for the last few years, right?
Yes.
I think that the pandemic has brought it to the forefront,
Hmm.
unfortunately, because of the things that were going on during the pandemic. But it is fortunate that it's been brought up to the forefront because
Absolutely.
for a long time, for forever, it's
Forever.
always been something that people did not want to talk about. So
Absolutely.
now we do.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's so important. And that's the main reason why I felt it was really important to bring you on, Crystal, so you
Yeah.
could share all the things that you've been doing. So tell me a little bit about your background and how you got to CTS Health.
All right. So I have pretty much an extensive background in mental health. I originally started as an intern in high school, and they gave me an internship at Association House of Chicago, which is also another social service agency that provides therapy and other resources. And I remember they offered me a position as a youth coordinator,
Mm.
and I worked with teenagers, and I worked with at-risk teenagers who came from a lot of difficulties, different challenging backgrounds, and at that time, it also wasn't a thing for adolescents to experience mental health.
Mm.
It wasn't a thing to identify your child as depressed or having anxiety. It was more so like a behavioral thing, thinking that the child is either not complying or defiant, but it was
Yes.
never kind of a thing. So, working with the teenagers and seeing their hardships and seeing how it impacted them made me realize that, that there is a lot of care that needs to be put out there when it comes to mental health.
Hmm.
During that time, I have a brother and he was diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Mm.
And it was something challenging for my family because, to give a background, my parents came from Puerto Rico at a very young age, and they lived on farmland in Puerto Rico. So their highest level of education was maybe seventh grade. Education wasn't a thing for them.
Right.
My mom is like the baby out of 12 children.
Yeah.
So so she wasn't able to really understand kind of what was happening with my brother. And it wasn't because of, you know, not wanting to. It was just a lack of education and not understanding terminologies and different words that the doctors would say. So I remember that while we were learning how to read and write, so was my mom. And
Mm.
I felt it was so important for me to understand this so I could explain it to my mom.
Hmm.
So I took it upon myself to do a lot of research, a lot of reading, even talking to some of my teachers about it. And I was able to kind of gain enough knowledge to break it down to my mom in a way that she will understand. And that was able to better his care because she knew how to maneuver through the doctors and what medicines were okay. So when I realized that I was doing this at like
I
16,
was just about to ask you, so how
si-
old were you? Because
yeah,
to be a teenager and you're literally forced to learn this
yeah.
so that you can help your family, that impacted you, right?
It did. And it was a lot of it wasn't easy, it was a lot that we had to understand and accept. Um and that was something that just gave me a passion to be in the field. So at that time I decided to be a full-time student and a full-time working full-time. So it was a lot for a while, and then I decided to resign for a little bit and get my degree and focus on getting my degree so that I could do more.
Yeah.
At that time, I had my resume up on Indeed, and this residential reached out to me. Um, Allendale Association. I get them confused with Association House of Chicago because the names are like kind of similar.
Yeah.
And that was like the biggest eye opener for me because that was my first time being a mental health specialist. And now I'm
Mm.
working with kids that are long term, that have been abused severely, that have severe trauma. Um, and it was kind of having to understand them as well as help them kind of do basic life skills and understand, teach them how to comb their hair and brush their teeth. And these are teenagers at this point that are like 16, 17, that you would think that they would have learned this, but because of their cognitive level, the trauma, all of these things, they were so delayed in that. And I did that for a good 10 years.
Mm.
I ended up becoming a unit coordinator, and I ran the biggest unit of the agency, which I housed about 20 young ladies.
And where was this
Um,
at?
and this was in Lake Villa, which was in Lake County,
Okay.
close to like Gurney
Yeah.
area. So I did that, and I realized that I wanted to do more. I didn't want to just stay with, because with long term service, you're basically servicing that one individual for anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on the
Wow.
age of
Yeah.
the adolescent. So, and then I had a friend that was like, well, have you looked into working at psych hospitals? And I was like, well, I'm a little scared about that, just hearing what's that like. And then I ended up interviewing for a psych hospital, and I became a program specialist.
Mm.
And then that was really so different because it was adults. And it was almost sad because I feel like a lot of adults, and even a lot of homeless people are homeless because of mental health.
Right.
And these
Right.
people that cannot help, like maybe there is some psychosis, some chemical imbalances,
Right.
and these are things that they didn't really experience, but more so genetically inherited, or something in their, you know, makeup that caused them to have some type of mental health. And because their families couldn't understand this, it's like they stopped loving them, they stopped supporting them.
Yeah.
So, and then working with adults who have these problems, but and then once they're stabilized and they're doing treatment and they're these beautiful people and they have so much to give, it just made me want to continue on to this field and to let people know not to be afraid of mental health. Understand it, get knowledge about it and understand how to approach it. And I think that people fear, like, oh my God, crazy. And that's something that is very big. And it's a term that we don't use at our agency. Other facilities that I work, it's not something that is appropriate to use,
Right.
because we have to break the stigma of thinking that because someone has certain struggles mentally, that they're like this outright person. or even if they reach that level of escalation, that they can never come back down and they can't be civilized, you know. So it was a big eye opener, and it just made me want to continue. And then it also helped me help my mom understand my brother more,
Right.
and just like, you know, understand, like, because certain people, certain mental health people cycle. So they could have 3 great months, they're med compliant, they're seeing their therapist, they're doing whatever, but and then it'll surface again where they'll cycle, and then they're symptomatic again, and all these things happen, and then they might escalate or they might have an incident, but it's not because they're forcing themselves to behave that way. It's
Right.
because just the
It's
way
the
the pattern.
cycle
Yeah.
of their mental illness, right? Or
Absolutely.
that is causing these unfortunate like ups and
And downs,
downs. Yeah.
yes, for sure. So it was good. I've had so much good times with them, doing activities and teaching them things. I remember one time I also worked for a dual diagnosis unit, which is
Mm.
people that have mental health and substance abuse problems, and a lot of these people were very much homeless. And I remember we did an activity, and I decided to order cookies, and these were adults older than me. And I remember one of them told me that them receiving a cookie from me was like the kindest thing they experienced in
Oh,
the like past 5 years. And
really?
it just
That's
like
so
broke my
sad.
heart, because I'm
Yeah.
like, for anybody else, people don't value, it's a cookie. But for that person, the gesture, the kindness took him further than the it was just a cookie, you know.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
also just being humane and having compassion and empathy, you know, for people. And it's not for everyone, you
Right.
know, and that's why everyone does different things. Like, I cannot be an IT person, I have no idea how to deal with computers, but I'm fabulous at dealing with people and interactions and
Yeah.
having conversations and problem solving. So, you know, I think everybody, you know, knows their path or finds their way. So
Yeah.
I'm really excited that I have been in this field for so long and want to continue to experience things. And I've worked for adult residentials, Clayton Residential, that was a 250-bed residential,
Wow.
um, and that was a lot of people, older people who were just medicated and stuff. And my thing is, I'm very passionate about good treatment.
Right.
And if I feel like an organization is not providing the proper treatment, I don't feel comfortable being a part of that organization. And I think because I have a schizophrenic brother, I take it a little bit more serious. Like, what if my brother was in your program
That's right.
and you're not treating him properly, or you're not giving him the proper care? So when I came across CTS, it was such a like a refreshing thing, because the therapists will meet the consumers in the community. They will go to the homes and do therapy. The caseworkers are helping them find like resources, groceries, clothing, and it was just like such a hands-on approach that I was like, wow, I haven't seen that in a while. I haven't heard anybody say, hey, my therapist came to my house.
And I
And
didn't even know that happens. And
yeah.
again, I looked on your, well, I didn't say this yet, but I looked on your website, ctshealth.org, and I looked at all the information and what it says that is offered here in Chicago. And I saw something about, the home care visits. And I'm like, oh, I've
Yeah.
never heard of that before.
Yeah, and it was even, and we were still providing services through the pandemic and everything. And I thought that was wonderful too, because
Yes.
I think the pandemic opened the eyes for a lot of people, because people who thought that they didn't suffer from mental health found themselves depressed, found themselves anxious because they were
Yep.
at home. Their routine got interrupted. They're not working out. They're not
They're not
having
going to
their
school.
school, their dinner dates, their recreational things that they love. So, and then that also started to develop, you know, some stress on them that caused these other symptomatic things. And I think that it was good that it also opened up a lot of funding for mental health, you know,
Correct.
and it opened up a lot of programs. And we also got awarded a grant through Illinois State to fund people who don't have insurance. So we have a
Mm,
grant program, and we do basically free services. People don't have their
very
own
important.
yeah, very important. And we take, regardless of immigration status, we take the clients on. So it's very exciting, and I love the work that they do there. And
Yeah.
I have been very much invested in such a short time, and I see see longevity because this company is very
That's
much evolving.
That's
So
wonderful.
for
Well,
sure.
thank you so much for all that you've done so far, because it
Yeah.
sounds like you've been doing this for quite a while, and um, I'm sure that it takes a lot of energy out of you because you're giving so much,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're
That's
welcome.
wonderful. So I want to talk about the stigma of mental health,
Yes.
right? Because that's one of the things that, as I mentioned, many people don't want to talk about it, mental health issues. How do you feel people can break that stigma of the mental health issues in our culture and in our community?
Yeah, so that's the first thing I was gonna say. It's being culturally aware.
Okay.
Everybody comes from different cultures where mental health is not a thing. Religion is a thing, and they will rather you pray than go see a therapist or different things like that.
Yeah.
So I think it's being aware of the culture, and then having the proper educational tools to explain to people. And I think that terminology, like if I'm talking with, if I'm doing the staffing and I'm talking with my director and I'm using all these intricate words, then I have a call where I'm talking to a consumer whose maybe level is a little bit different, their cognitive level. I'm not going to have the same level of conversation that I will have with another professional. And it's not because I don't value my consumer, but it's because I do value them that I'm going to explain things to them where they understand. And I think that if people took the time to educate themselves about the cultures that we have in
Yeah.
Chicago or Illinois or in the world, and then also take the time to meet people where they're at, and not try to expect them to understand where we are at, right? So I think it's just bringing more awareness and also having patience. I remember when I would have Hispanic families admit their child to the psych ward, and they were so devastated. They felt like they failed. They felt like they just were so upset. And then I took the time to explain to them, like, you're actually not failing, you're giving your child care, you're
That's right.
doing the best.
That's
And
right.
then that was able for them to open eyes and see it differently. But in that culture, if you can't handle your kid, you're a failure, but it's not like that because you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a
No.
therapist, you're not.
No.
So bringing your child or your family member to care is, a positive thing versus a negative thing. And it's just having the proper social workers and treatment team members that have that holistic approach where they want to explain things where these families and these individuals could understand and accept help instead of just being afraid of it
Yeah.
or, unaware of what it might look like. They see movies and they see people tied up in straight jackets and stuff, and then they come and bring their kid and they see the kid is playing games in the game room, and and I'm like, it's not the same, like, so it's just a lot. Even the media has a lot to do with why
Oh,
people
yes.
think mental health is, a scary thing.
Yeah, and speaking of media, so the social media could be good and it could be bad, right?
Yes.
Because there's a lot on social media that does help to bring awareness,
Mm-hmm.
right? People that share their stories and say, I have a mental health issue or I have mental health symptoms
Mm-hmm.
on social media is great because then they're connecting with other people that
Yes.
have the same
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
then you have the people that will criticize that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Instead of supporting it. So I unfortunately, social media for people with mental health can be very difficult
Yes, and very
because they're
triggering for
very
sure.
sensitive with, whatever situation they're in. And then the social media can compound the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just,
Yeah,
it's just
it's
not
a
easy.
it's a it's a good thing and then a bad thing,
Yeah.
and just also just a lot of people who have mental health and obviously they have struggles with identifying what's positive, what's negative,
Yeah.
what's healthy, what's unhealthy.
Yes.
So when they are indulging in social media, they could be very impressionable, and they could
Yes.
think that, maybe drinking is the thing because the song said to drink, or adolescents who, the whole emo stage and everything where, self harm was kind of like a thing, and they thought it was okay to self harm because this culture, um, just developed out of nowhere and said it was okay to hurt yourself and do all these things,
Yeah.
shows and books. And so it's been a lot of different things. And I think that working with adolescents and adults, it impacts both. It's not
Yeah.
like they think that, oh, kids will be like quick to do that, but adults too.
Adults too.
So yeah, so it's really important to just keep giving as much education out there about
Yeah.
mental health as
Yeah,
possible.
I agree that the stigma or helping to remove the stigma is part of, like you said, educating people, educating them one on one, educating the families
Mhm.
so they understand that the family member that is struggling, that they need support, right? They
Absolutely.
just need support.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about where your offices are. So there are two in Chicago.
Yes.
Okay.
So we have one in the Belmont Cragen area, which is 2715 North Central.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a Bronzeville location, which is 56 East 47th Street. And we are expanding, but these are both offices, but we also do community based services. So we
Okay.
try to service Chicago. We don't just base ourselves off of two locations.
Good.
We try to be in the Logan Square area. We are in trying to be in the Montclair area. I mean, I have several lists. We were just going over it yesterday. I'm surprised I don't have it on the top of my head, but
Mm-hmm.
we're really trying to collaborate with aldermen, politicians. I mean,
Good.
whatever we could do to bring awareness
Good.
on mental health and on what CTS does, we are out there hands on. And it's not just my caseworkers. I'm out there. My directors are out there. I mean, everything physically.
You're out there
Yes.
meeting with people, meeting with leaders to kind of
Yes.
collaborate and
Absolutely.
expand.
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, that's wonderful.
And building connections. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. So the website is ctshealth.org, which I have on here. And I went through the website and took a look at a few of the different pages. It talks about that, of course, it's a nonprofit organization. There's a section called self-help, which I thought was helpful because it also, there's sections on, there's a blog area that gives you a lot of information about mental health. There's videos that you can just go in and take a look at, quick videos, which I also thought was very helpful. What things can people do, whether it's like if I'm calling for a family member or that specific person that needs help? How do they find the support? Aside from CTS Health, how do they find the support? Do they just call like 911 or 311? Do you have any like specifics on what they can do? Because I know there's also like, of course, the suicide prevention hotline and stuff like that.
And I know that Illinois came out with a collaborative directory of different organizations that are on the roster of provide different services in different areas.
Okay.
I don't have that on the top of my head, but I could provide you the information.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And they could also look in that directory.
Okay.
And then it's just like also I see that the community is evolving where, you could talk to someone in the church and they'll start to direct you to someone in the mental health profession.
Right.
You could talk to someone at school. Different organizations have like EPA or different systems that help them connect with a mental health provider.
Good.
So I think that that's good as well. And then just like word of mouth helps too, right? Knowing, talking to someone that is in the community that kind of knows locations. So we try to community. We're out there.
Good. Well, the month of May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the show. Thank you so much. I just wanted to mention as well that I get some newsletters from different organizations regularly, and one of the organizations is called Youth Guidance. I believe they're in the downtown area of Chicago, and their newsletter they sent me this week had some statistics that I wanted to bring up just so that I could share a little bit more, of course, because it's educational, right?
Yeah.
We want to talk about things that are impacting our community. They stated, according to the CDC, that more than 42% of teenagers experience grief and sadness. 42%, so almost 50%, right? Only 16% of all American children receive any mental health services. And of those receiving care, over 70% receive that care in schools. And that's through Ed Research. And it takes 11 years on average from when a child is first experiencing mental health symptoms to when they actually get help. 11 years.
Yeah.
And, from that, it could be, let's say they're 10 or younger, and then 11 years, they're 21. And they've gone through so many years of struggling, and then people will say, well, what happened? Well, they've been struggling for a long time. It's just that now they can't take it anymore, right?
True. And then also certain diagnoses cannot be diagnosed on children. So, and then that's also kind of hard because you can't give a child a schizophrenic diagnosis. There's certain things that they need to develop, certain developmental things to be like, okay, this is really the issue with the child or the situation. But that's back to me saying that, like, people don't believe that kids get depressed or they don't know what's going on in the schools. And if I had a lot of cases where moms came and was like, this is a good kid, he was doing good, I never had problems, and now he don't want to come out the room, he doesn't want to go to school. And then it's kind of just finding the core, like, what happened? Is there like something that's going on? And the bullying, or just not being able to identify with other people, or even understanding, like, so if they don't get care and this kid may have ADHD or something, and the whole time they're thinking you're a bad kid, you don't sit still, you don't pay attention, and they went through that the whole time thinking that they're a bad kid, and then in reality they just never got the proper care to be like, wait, you actually have like ADHD or different other developmental things. So
yes, I love that you mentioned the word bad, because that's, of course, the way it used to be, right? When we were growing up. If that one kid was the one that was causing the trouble, everyone would call him the bad kid, but then nobody was really looking to see what was going on around him, right?
Yeah.
So again, this is why it's so important that we're bringing the awareness of, the stigma needs to be removed. We need to take that stigma out of it. Mental health issues that pretty much everybody experiences at some point in their life.
Absolutely.
Right? Even postpartum, when women have children, they go through depression. Some, it could be anything, the loss of a family member, and it drives them down.
Yeah.
So again, it's just, we really need to step back and, like you mentioned, be empathetic and listen and talk and not judge.
Or project your own thoughts onto people. There's a lot of projection. Like, you shouldn't be depressed. You have a nice car, nice job. Why are you depressed? Or, why are you anxious? Everything in your life seems calm, And it's just like some of these emotions and some of these feelings are not controllable. Some people could have chronic depression or anxiety or both. So it's just kind of also, it all stems down to wanting to be aware and wanting to educate yourself and wanting to help others to understand the mental health kind of entity.
And don't self-diagnose for anything, not even if you have an ache.
And you know what, to be real honest, My clinicians have therapists,
Mm,
that is a thing. Like,
thank you for saying that.
yeah, like people think that us healthcare providers or us people in the mental health field that we don't have therapists or we don't have those emotions where we have anxiety or we are down and we are depressed. That's life, but it's a matter of what tools and what supports you look for and just having that knowledge. And maybe you don't know that you're depressed, but reaching out to somebody, they could be, help you and guide you like, okay, I think that maybe you need to go see somebody. So I always try to tell my consumers, I said, there's a lot of times where my consumers have told me, oh, or my patients or clients, like, oh, you saved me, you helped me. And I would say, you know what? You helped me too. I was having a horrible day. I ran this group. You had good things to say. You gave me advice. I gave you advice. It goes both ways. So I think that what is sad is that people that struggle with mental health are not valued as people who are smart, capable, willing, loving. Their people are just afraid.
Yeah.
Like, you are not right in your mind, so I don't trust you. I don't trust what you got to say versus like, how can I help you? I see something is not right or
Yeah.
something's off. Like, what's going on? So it's definitely,
Well, I love that. Thank you,
yeah,
Crystal. That was really, really important what you just said.
yeah,
I also feel like um, it, as we are getting, at least as I'm getting older, I realize that um, we should, uh, when we're raising our children, we should bring up counseling um, as just a normal part of their life
hmm,
versus waiting till there are signs that they have problems.
yeah,
And if that was done from the very young age, I'm sure it's something not that easy to do, in general for the community.
yeah,
But if that was brought up early, for children to say that it's okay to go to counseling or, especially with the schools, because I know a lot of schools, as this mentioned, that many of the students or many of the children get their help through the schools,
hmm,
that that's the best way to help them grow up um, with some idea of who they are, their identity,
yeah.
and to build a better life versus waiting till they're struggling.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share about some of the things that CTS Health is doing in the community. You mentioned something about high school students. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so we collaborated with I believe it's ITW Spear Academy. Um and they granted us some interns. It was our first time getting interns, so we had whatever amount we wanted to choose, but I was like, let me get 5. I don't know about having a bunch of teenagers in the office, but they were awesome. And basically they learned the disciplines of like the office, and they were shadowing some of my caseworkers,
Mm,
making phone calls to consumers. They were also talking with therapists, getting
really?
some educational cues on therapists. They did a huge presentation today on the office, and they're very excited. And we're going to continue with that program. And I was able to be a career panelist for the school, and I did presentations for 11th and 10th grade, and it was so eye-opening to them. They did a review on me, and they were saying that they didn't know that it was like okay to talk about not being
You
okay,
see?
or that people like myself
Wow.
could give those type of services to someone, because a lot of times it's also cultural things, right?
Mhm.
So if I come from a certain culture or race, it's hard to get service from someone who may not look like me
Right.
or didn't come from a background that I came from. And
Right.
then you're telling me that I need help. So do I get offended or do I seek this help,
Right. Like, how
right?
do they trust that person?
Exactly.
Yeah, I
So,
see
and then
that.
it's just having that approach where like they got to know me and I was like, well,
Aww.
I got a bunch of tattoos. I love shoes. I love this. And then they were like, but you're a program director and you do. I'm like, yes, I'm educational.
Aww.
I'm professional, but I'm human, and as a human person.
Yes.
And it was, and they loved it. They were like, thank you for talking to us about mental health
Wow.
and the things that you've seen. And, I have so many stories of different people that I've helped stabilize or went back in the community, and people who unfortunately weren't able to stabilize
Mhm.
because there is unfortunate realities that as much treatment as that we try to provide in people, if there's someone that has like maybe a dual diagnosis where they're dealing with mental health and substance, sometimes it's hard to overcome because maybe
Absolutely.
you're trying to overcome your mental health, but the substance, you can't beat it, so
Right.
and then it beats you, so it's just a lot of things. But as long as we have people in the community and we keep on bringing awareness, I think that we'll continue to evolve. As a state, as the city, in the world. I think that that's major.
Yeah. And going into the schools and bringing your stories
Mm-hmm.
is really going to impact
Yeah.
the kids. Again, because they need to know that these services are out there as well. Because sometimes the parents don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and the children are the first ones to bring it to the parents.
Yeah.
So
Because I
that's
had a
awesome.
kid tell me, they were like, I was at the bus stop, and every time I go to this one bus stop, there's always this homeless person, and they're always yelling and talking to themselves and
Oh,
screaming. And they were like, but now I know that they're just not doing this because they just want to be wild. And I was like, right. So it opens a person's eyes to view things differently.
yeah.
So yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love all the stuff that you're doing. What other events do you have coming up with the organization?
So the organization, we do have our program, which is a PSR program, which is psychosocial rehabilitation, and we offer it for adults, and we're now opening it to adolescents.
Okay.
And that is basically, we're running workshops Monday through Friday.
Mm,
We're doing life skills, we're doing different groups, and that's happening every week.
really?
And people that come in and they want to be a part of our program, they could participate in that. And that, it's helpful. It provides just so much educational things, helping them do resumes, seek jobs, kind of cook, anything that they feel that they need extra support on. We're facilitating different groups. And then also
Wow.
we ask them what would they like, what do they are interested in. So, and then we also do events twice a month.
Mhm.
We just had a Mother's Day event for all the moms, and they came in. And then we have our mental health convention. Around the holidays, we do like clothing drives, food baskets, different like, gifts. We try to do as much as we can. We collaborate with other community agencies for donations, and we try to give as much as we can. Right now, in my north side office, we have a washer and dryer, and we have a shower, for any people who are like homeless or don't have those resources,
Oh.
and they need a shower and they need to wash their
Wow, you
clothes.
see, like that's
So
stuff that I
yeah.
never knew existed.
Yeah, I didn't know CTS existed. I was in the field for like 15 years, and I was
Yeah,
like, this is like a diamond in the rough.
it
Like, wow.
is.
And I just
Yeah.
love how much attention we're getting, and we're trying to expand and put ourselves out there. So I thank you for inviting me,
Yeah.
because we get to definitely let the people know we're here. We're
Yeah.
here and we want to service you and your families, anywhere from 5 to seniors. You know, senior citizens, senior high schools, whoever.
Yeah, yeah. That's
But for
awesome.
sure.
So you have the website ctshealth.org, and then
Mhm.
you have some social media pages. I'm going to just go here and click on. This is the CTS Health Chicago Facebook page, and it also shows what's going on.
Yes, and it posts the events, and it
Yep.
posts flyers, and
Wonderful.
for
Wonderful.
sure.
So
Yep.
go in to CTS Health Chicago. Follow them, like them.
Thank
I'm going
you.
to do it right now.
And we also put informational stuff on there,
Yeah.
educational stuff. It's not just what we're doing. Like we have stuff about breaking the stigma, being able to identify certain things, bring
Yes.
awareness. So, and we love people to, come by and check our offices out. Like we give tours, all types of things. We have a beautiful mural project that happened in my office, and it was one of our consumers who was about to go into crisis. And
Oh,
she was on the verge of, you know, kind of experiencing a lot of tough situations, and our job is to try to help them stabilize without needing inpatient services, right? So one of the therapists, her knew that she was an artist and was like, do you want to paint somewhere? Like I could see if we could get you a wall. Now she's
wow.
painting my entire hallway and it's so
Really?
beautiful, and it has so many inspirational quotes on there,
Oh,
and
nice.
and it's like her story.
And she's doing
um
that now.
yeah,
So
she's
it
doing that
should go
now.
on to social media soon when she's done.
Yes.
No rush.
Yes, we're gonna do also I kind of want to do kind of an event for her and showcase her
Oh,
work. We've had another consumer who was struggling with depression, and through therapy and case management, she was able to stabilize, get through school, and now she did an awesome TikTok. I wish I had it. And she talks about our organization, and now she does therapy for dogs. So it's like really awesome because she's like
oh,
some of the skills that
wow.
I've learned, I've been able to adapt with my dogs who have behavioral issues. They're anxious, they're depressed. And so
That's
I was like, it's
amazing.
such a success story for sure.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's so many things that people are doing to bring awareness to this mental health um, situation. And I'm so grateful to you for coming on the show and talking about all this. This has
Thank
been
you.
really, really educational.
Yeah.
Please go on to the website, CTS
Health.
health.org. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram. And is there a phone number we would like to share?
Yes, and that is the number. It's 773-360-1389.
Okay.
And that is our north side location. And you also could ask to be connected to the south side if that's a closer location. And we also assess that too. If we
Okay.
have a consumer that comes in and wants services, if we feel like they're closer to the south side, we'll connect them, or we'll still come out in the community and service them wherever they're at.
That's
So, yeah.
wonderful. So the website also allows you to donate and look into volunteering,
Yes,
right?
yes,
So, giving back to the community is always so very important,
for
especially
sure.
with organizations like CTS Health, that is really, really impacting
Thank you.
our community. So,
Thank
anything
you.
else you'd like to share?
No, I just, love people, try your best to understand them. Crazy is really not a thing, you know?
Yep.
I know that it's easy to use that word, but it's really not a thing because behind every action or behind any impulse or anything, there is something stemming from there. There's something going on,
Yes.
and people just don't wake up and say, hey, I want to be crazy today. So just kind of, bringing awareness to that, trying to eliminate that word, and just, love people, because love
Yeah.
brings a lot away, and self-care. Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Know your limits. Understand your frustrations. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to be happy. And being able to accept what you feel as well. Sometimes we suppress our feelings because we think that it either makes us weak or it doesn't make us good enough. And then in reality, it just hurts us in the end versus just accepting that, we're human. And
Yeah.
some days are going to be great. Some days are not going to be great,
That's right.
and that's life, and it's just how you receive it and what you do with it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, those are beautiful words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. Again, Crystal Cancel.
Yes.
Thank you again for being here.
Thank you for
I really
having me.
appreciate
This is
it.
awesome.
So thank you so much for listening today. I hope you found this episode valuable. If you have any questions about today's topic, or if you'd like to give some suggestions for future shows, please reach out to me at 773-879-4855. You could find me on all social media platforms, Dalia the Realtor. I hope that you will share this episode and follow me and subscribe to wherever you're listening to Move Ahead with Dalia. I'll see you on the next episode and make it a great day. Thank you.